Welcome to our monthly Charter School Investor Podcast, what charter school leadership looks like. Each month, we meet with leaders in the charter school sector to better understand how they land the plane while it's still being built. Our guest today, my good friend Bob Lysek, Chief Executive Officer of Executive Education Academy Charter School. Um, Known Bob for probably 10 years, actually. When we started School Improvement Partnership, Bob, an executive, was one of the first clients we had that we report on for the bond market. Well, Bob, first, thank you for making time to join us today.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me, Alan. It's great to see you in this setting. And it's been 10 years. It's been a good run so far.
It really has. Interestingly, so before we start on your journey, I do remember one of my first visits up there. You remember I met with, was it Bruce, your first
Yes.
CFO, great man.
Yes.
And we all go on the shoulders of those who go before us.
Yes. Yes.
And
Missing Bruce. Unfortunately, he passed several years back, but he was so instrumental in putting us on the map and connecting us and forming our partnership and relationship.
absolutely. So I walk in to tour the building and I'm looking for Mr. Lysick. Understand he's a big, powerful guy. And this guy greets me with orange hair, and it's Bob Lysick.
Yeah, I think it
This
was that bullying week, right? There was an
It
orange
was
theme to it.
bullying week.
Or anti-bullying week, and there was orange shirts and orange hair flying around the building. So I jumped on board. I'm a team player. I said, hey, spray my hair orange. If we can address this issue, we're all in.
And that's a little bit of the magic for those listening about how you set a culture, in your building. And we'll get to that more as we talk about Bob's leadership. But first, if I could, Bob, I just wanted to start with your journey. And can you tell us a little bit about your early years and the influences that shaped not only your leadership style, but your commitment to public education?
Yes, and again, thanks for having me, Alan. This is great to be a part of this podcast. I've been in education now going on, geez, for almost 30 years. I've been around. It's kind of hard to believe when I sit back here and digest that question, how long it's been. And there's a lot of history to my journey and a lot of great people attached to it. I started fresh out of college in education. I was really in residential programs first, court adjudicated type education, which really helped me. I was blessed to be a part of a model that we still use a lot present day early on in my career. And that kind of transitioned me into alternative education fairly well and special education, which took me all over the country. I had an opportunity to work in many, many different states and Puerto Rico, running schools at an early age. In my 20s, I was a director of alternative ed and special education programs in Texas and Florida and other places. And I learned quickly how to be a leader because I was put in that position at such an early age. I was blessed to have some people around me that were a bit wiser and been around education longer than I have, where I would not be shy to pick their brains and be a sponge and try to learn what I could wherever I was. That opportunity to move around all over the country and see what worked and didn't work, which is important, then put me back. That my journey took me back home. I ended up in Philadelphia for a long while in education. The same special education, alternative education vibe with credit recovery attached to that. Helped some superintendents over the years. We became pretty good over our time around culture, climate, developing of schools, and we were sought out often to do various different types of schools in Philadelphia. Eventually, that led us to the charter movement. We helped a lot of charter schools, which was a lot of fun. Learned a lot from that group, and then that kind of springboarded us into Executive Education Academy Charter School. We said, we're helping all these charter schools in Philadelphia. We were tied to all the networks, and we said, let's do our own. And we ended up doing our own here in Allentown. But a lot of great people over my time, Alan. That's the bottom line. And when I could learn, like a Bruce Johnson's a good example of that. You referenced Bruce at the beginning of piece. I learned a ton from him. And I'm not shy. I don't know it all, and I try to learn every day.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, that uh, describes a lot of the sort of the growth that you've had over these 30 years. You know, any one of those would have been a fine stop to jump off and stay. And you continued to grow. Uh, my second job, yeah, you know, the guy, he said I was getting ready to apply to law school, and he said, you know, you can keep dragging people out of the lake who have gone over the waterfall and are drowning, or
Mhm.
you can try to go to the top of the waterfall.
I like that.
And it sounds like you've done that well. You glossed over it a little bit, but you had some experience in law enforcement, unless I'm remembering wrong.
That is correct. During my journey, this educational journey I've been on, I had a brief stint in Florida as a police officer in the Tampa, Clearwater, St. Pete area. But when I was in law enforcement, I tried to attach myself to juvenile division and working with kids. It's kind of been my calling, and spent 5 years in law enforcement in between stints in education in various different places. I thought that was my calling at the time, and it wasn't. Education called me back. Had an opportunity to get back in it and ended up in Philadelphia, from Clearwater to Philadelphia, and that was really what took me to this place here, and being back home in Allentown. It was attractive to come home in education and be in Philadelphia at the time, and it was the right move. But I did enjoy that 5 years in law enforcement.
Yeah, it's interesting as you describe that. It feels like to me, and this is just maybe me, and I'm not an educator like you. I feel like there is maybe the common denominator is growth, but it always seemed a little odd in law enforcement to, you know, judge people the rest of their life on their worst day and
Yes,
assume that they can never change or grow and not put systems in place to do that.
yes. I would agree with that. It's a tough job, and there's something different that's presented to you on a daily basis, and you have your good and bad days, and we're all human, and we make mistakes, and we learn from them. The key is learning from the mistakes. Education's very similar, in my opinion. When I do crisis management trainings, which I still do, with traditional publics and other charters, I talk about the similarities in education and law enforcement, because there are a lot, in my opinion. There's a lot of unexpected incidents that happen in both, and the Monday morning quarterbacks come out quickly around both professions, and you always have to be on your game. You always have to be ready for the unexpected in both professions, to make those right calls and to make the right decisions. Because if not, you are going to be scrutinized, criticized, and hopefully you made the right call.
Yeah, well, I've noticed really from my first visit and meeting with you that you do something that I still struggle with, but you seem to, when you're in a pressure situation, rather than react, you respond. And on that day, you know, 10 years ago when I was at your school and there you were with orange hair, as I recall, because it was quite impactful for me, there was going to be a fight at school
Mhm.
and you got word and the buses were held, you know, the kids were held in the buses and the situation was diffused before anything ever started.
Yes. Must be proactive in education. There's a lot of reactive groups out there, and I think those are the groups that struggle in our field. You must be proactive. If you have information about something that's going to occur on your campus, you want to get to it as fast as you can. You want to prevent the situation before it arises, and kind of the way our culture is built, and when the culture is up and running, which it is now after our 11th year, students are going to share a lot of information with us, and we take that information seriously. I think that was the case that day 10 years ago. We knew something was happening, and then we're gonna head it off. And we would rather prevent the altercation from happening than see it happen and deal with all the blowback after the fact. It's just a proactive approach to crisis. We're proactive pretty much in all we do here at the school. That allows us to grow in a positive direction. If something does happen that is negative, we try to flip that into some type of positive and grow from it.
Sure. Well, as a co-founder of Executive Education, I'm curious. It sounded like when you had been, running a big piece of Camelot, which was the group you referred to in Philly that was doing, as I recall, sort of the schools within a school
Yes,
for Mastery and many of the other large CMOs who didn't really wanted somebody expert in dealing with their students that were not on track.
yes.
How did that inspire you to start Executive?
Well, that was our first experience with charter schools. So once we started to understand that whole movement, which was a pretty large movement at the time in Philadelphia, going back to what they called the Renaissance movement, where the school district of Philadelphia identified 18 or I think maybe even 21 schools, elementary, middle, and high schools that were struggling seriously, are persistently dangerous. I think they even classified them at the state level. They decided at that point that they'd find good charter providers to take these schools on, and the district would pull away. Well, the charter schools that then were awarded these schools found out quickly the true problems that existed and kind of overwhelmed them. So they sought out some experts around culture and climate because we had a great presence and reputation in Philadelphia in alternative ed, and they reached out to us and asked us to come on board, and we came on board with them and stabilized some really broken schools, turned those schools into some showpieces, and then that was, um, kinda like I mentioned earlier, our way to push in to say, "Hey, my group that's still with me present day, 3 of the 4 founders are still here today," said, "Let's do our own, and let's identify an area or a market, I should say, that makes the most sense." And I was born in Allentown, and Allentown was a low performing district. We were able to circle up and file a petition with Allentown, and we were awarded 11 years ago here. But our experience in Philadelphia with charter schools, which was totally new to us, as I mentioned, is what pushed us to where we are today into this movement.
Sure. Well, part of the magic that, before I talk next about leadership with you or ask about leadership with you, is just sort of climate and culture. And I think that's one of the unique pieces. Any charter school leader feels that, but I think executive education has in this as well as other ways that we'll talk about distinguished itself. So let's say talk about an individual student without, naming names, but sort of a situation of somebody who was sort of not on track and how it can maybe illustrate how you support a student, in your climate and culture to get back on track.
Great question, and we say here without culture and climate, you're not gonna see the success and the results, which we are showing now with our data, we can talk about a little later, but we put culture and climate first, even before education, because without it, you can't educate. So if you focus all your energy, or your majority of your energy on, your decision making around culture and climate and how it's going to affect that, you're gonna have great success everywhere across the board with your academics, with your social emotional programs, with your extracurricular, with your sports. Good stable culture equals good, strong results and success in education and in most companies. If you look at other companies outside of education, they're gonna have a good, successful companies are gonna have a good internal culture in place. When it comes to crisis and how culture works with students, it's we're definitely not perfect, and students will test us every day. And there's crisis every day. We're inner city school. We have poverty issues, gang issues, the issues that exist in every inner city that's brought into our building daily. The key is to address it as early as possible, be proactive the best you can, communicate with your team, meaning sharing information in regards to some things that are happening with students and student behavior, and then redirect it. Regardless of the crisis, you redirect that crisis the best you can. But even before all that, it's the relationship and rapport you have with the students in your school and your staff. We focus a lot of energy on relationships and rapport. And the better, stronger, obviously, relationship and rapport you have with your students, the less amount of crisis you're going to have. But when you do have it, you're going to be able to manage it a lot better.
Yeah, I recall that day. So I get there and there's going to be a fight in the lunchroom, and don't know what's going on, but you know me, I want to see what's going. So I go there, and one of your deans or something talking to a student who must have been acting up. So that was in the morning of the tour. And then that afternoon, I see that same kid putting programs on chairs for an assembly,
Mhm.
and
Yes.
no one else is doing it but him.
Yes.
And he is making sure those programs are square in that chair as if his life depended on it.
Yes. So, I'm just trying to recall the case and situation back then, but that sounds very normal. You know, we'll pull that student away from the other and we'll task them for the day or push them right back into class, depending on the drama that's circulating around the two. But we'll attach them to something else, kind of get their mind off of decompress, focus on something else, but be productive. We're not gonna send them out of the building for the day. We're gonna have them do something in the building because we don't want their education to suffer, or we don't want their experience in the school to suffer. So we have plenty to do in the
Yeah,
building that they can help out with, and you got to see that.
absolutely. Well, now I do want to talk about your
Mhm.
leadership, and I'm curious how your approach to leadership, and it means, as we've found in this podcast, many things to many different people. There are commonalities. You mentioned communication. Buried in there was respect for your teammates, I believe, and which we hear often. But how has your approach to leadership evolved over the years, especially in the context of leading a charter school, in a time like this?
It's a good question. We haven't changed much over our time in education, regardless if it was a special education school or alternative, or even some of the residentials we did, is we're really big on communication, and the leaders are all a part of that communication process. So, for instance, this morning we met at 7:30. The administrative team meets at 7:30 every single day, but on our meeting day, which is Tuesdays, where we do more formal meetings, we do informal meetings every single day, Alan, at 7:30, and we call it a flash. And everyone is totally respected. Everyone's opinions are important. Everyone has a voice on that admin team every single day when we're communicating. We share very pertinent information quickly, and then we open those doors at 7:45, and the students are entering the building along with most of our staff. I like to show uh, I like to lead by example. I like to be here first. A lot of times I'm leaving last. I'm typically the first to that meeting every day, leading by example, and that then ultimately rubs off on the rest of the team, and they're doing the same thing. But having good structured meetings also are important. We are such big believers in the meeting process of communication and understanding and respecting the chain of command and knowing your organizational structure. When we did the school turnarounds for the, I don't know, 10 years in Philadelphia with charters and traditional publics, we would go into a building, and what do you think we would see would be the biggest issue? Would be the adults and the communication systems attached to the adults. There, it was non-existent. Most of the schools I visit currently, present day, there's broken communication that exists in the building. My task with my superintendent session, I was in the superintendent academy, was how to find time, or 35 superintendents throughout the state, how to find time to meet in a day, which some schools and school districts really struggle with. We build it into our schedule. We also on Wednesdays to show you how important it is. We have a early dismissal day Wednesday, and that's a team meeting day. Everyone in the building meets on those Wednesdays from top down, and then we do some type of professional development as well. But I think also, if I could add, just with leadership, it's being candid, being direct, being caring, being fair, being stern. Those type of things are so important, and just um, supporting your team the best you can, whatever that looks like. Constantly trying to get better, and then also sharing with your team, being direct, transparent, and open. What we're trying to do good, and some things we're struggling with, and how we need to address those to get better.
Yeah, well, just knowing you a little bit, I feel like that communication, whether it's stern or clear or whatever, is bolstered by the feeling that your team knows that you care. Thank you, Bob. I wonder what you learned. I know you headed the Pennsylvania Coalition of Public Charter Schools for quite some time, and uh, I wonder what you learned in that process working with, other charter school leaders and the coalition.
Another good question. I sat as the president for 4 years through several different leadership changes and multiple board members um, terming out or leaving and adding and doing elections, and that group changed a lot over those 4 years. What I learned, though, there was a lot of knowledge on that board, and I was exposed to a lot politically. Also understanding, what was going on with the legislature, and just being educated uh, often on things and initiatives that were brewing at the state level that I wouldn't have had exposure to if I wasn't the president and I didn't sit on that board. I understood, or I learned, excuse me, how I think that setting helped me learn how to deal with people maybe even better than the setting I'm in now, because we dealt with a lot of high pressure situations, a lot of different agendas were flying around, a lot of tension at times with the board was interesting dynamic, and I think I maneuvered around it well, and I grew a lot, and I got to meet some really good people, a lot of people that I respect and still communicate with today. Now that I've turned off the board, I'm no longer on the board. I did sit as a member for a year, or no, 2 years, excuse me. So I was on that board for 6 years, and I met a lot of good people. And I think I made a difference in my role. And I think as a movement, we made a big difference as a coalition. The board really stepped up when we had to deal with some really tough decisions. I'm happy to say I was a part of it.
Yeah, well, that's a whole nother application of, we put in quotes leadership because it sounds like you were learning and growing and learning to deal with people with different, agendas, different roles, different stakeholders, all that. Albeit you get your, I'm sure plenty of them at your school, but it was different ones at this level, and yet managed to adapt and not run over anybody. Unless I'm missing that, did you have to run over any state senators or anything?
No, no. There was times though where it was a lot of work when it came to just time in general. It was a big commitment. It was like at times when we had to deal with some of the crisis we were faced with, it was like a part-time job, really was. Had put a lot of work in to that coalition and that group, which was taxing. Obviously, with this job I have is a full-time job, and there's a lot going on here. So didn't have to steamroll anybody, but um, we had to make some tough decisions through the years.
Sure, sure. Well, I think one thing which I sort of put under leadership, it could be in a lot of different places, but I think the general topic is the unique relationship of charter schools with the communities they serve. And I think that you're breaking new ground in creating those partnerships to prepare students not just for career or college, but potentially for life. So, can you tell us a little bit about the community partnership that you've formed with the neighboring health system and how that impacts your students and the choices they have going forward?
Yes, our community partnership, I'll speak about the Lehigh Valley Health Network partnership first, but then I'll speak about our presence within the community second. We were blessed enough to engage both health networks in the Lehigh Valley. You have two sizable networks here who had interest in our school, primarily because of sports at first, because we had a relationship with one of the networks who bought another uh, entity we were using at the time, whatever. But it opened up contractual negotiations with the two. Here in the Lehigh Valley, you have two networks that are pretty much involved in all education now, and every doctor and every health facility in the area is connected to one or the other, and we just became a target of theirs, and we did some negotiating with the two networks, and we eventually settled with Lehigh Valley Health Network as our medical partner. That brought us a lot to the school to help the community address our school community, but the overall Lehigh Valley community. The funds that came along with that partnership allowed us to build a field house. We have a full court field house with a track attached to it, or six volleyball courts, excuse me. That was part of this partnership, a weight facility, state of the art facility that has attachments to the community, as well as a medical pathway program, career pathway program that they allocated $10 million for our students, our executive students. So we're on our third cohort this year. It's a 3-year-old program. Any students that are involved through the internal processes we have in place to select them will receive a scholarship at the end of the year. Um, the first two received $5,000 to $10,000 scholarships. That's probably going to grow more this year now that the contractual issues. It was pretty still in the works when we started. So I think we finalized the contract now. So those students are going to be eligible for even more money, and also then a career with the network during the experience and then post if they graduate. Students who aren't even going to be, within the nursing or medical side of that program also could be a part of the network through some of the other jobs they offer, from security to a cook to a driver or whatever. The network offers 700 plus jobs. What is really neat about this partnership, Thomas Jefferson out of Philadelphia just purchased Lehigh Valley Health Network. They're merging together now, forming the biggest health network in the United States, which I think is only going to be positive, obviously, for us. We think we're going to expand that partnership even further financially and programmatically. We have two athletic trainers, a strength coach, a mental health coordinator, and the orthopedic arm of the network in our building. So all those services get pushed into our school, which then in turn, with a new facility here, supports the Allentown community with clinics, camps with the city of Allentown and other entities. Um, but besides that network, which we're so proud of, you can obviously tell, we built the charter on community engagement. We have a community engagement coordinator here who's been here for 11 years. We just hosted the Puerto Rican Festival. 20,000 people were present in our back parking lot. This is the third year we've done that, as one example of how we support our community. We've done police graduations to trunk or treat to holiday events that we open up to the community. It's something we're very proud of and something that we'll never stray from. It's one of the pillars of the program. So we are very, very big with community.
Mm. Wow. Well, I think when this podcast hits, your phone is going to be ringing off the hook on how you create a partnership like that. I remember thinking, I felt like when I ran around your building, which is I think it's an old Bethlehem steel plant, uh,
Old Western Electric.
Western Electric,
Yes.
and it was like 130,000 square feet of something. And now look at what you've done in 10 years. You probably are running out of space.
Yeah, it's actually 550,000 square feet. We have 10 tenants. We're a very unique charter school, maybe one of the only in the country that has tenants. We formed a foundation 6 years ago, not thinking we would own our building. That foundation was created for fundraising purposes. Well, we understood quickly through some really smart financial minds that we can use our foundation legally as an instrument to purchase our building. We purchased our building, and we have 10 tenants in the building that pay rent. After we pay the bills, any surplus from our 10 tenants supports our mission, which is the charter school.
Mm. Well, now I wanted to turn to Bob, what lies ahead.
Okay.
And I feel like this is a bit of a vague question about, the future role of charter schools, but the broader landscape of uh, not only character and career development for students, but also potentially uh, in y- y- creating opportunities, for growth for students, whether they are students with special needs, students with who've served even time or been, I know
Mhm.
your students don't really get suspended or expelled, but disciplinary issues and how you feel you all have a role in how public education is really evolving.
Mhm. I would say, and we talked a bit about it here, is corporate and community partnerships, I think, are very important when addressing the needs of our students. Because let's face it, all our students are not going to move on to college. Some will move on to trades, some will move on to college. A large portion of them are going to stay within the community and they need to be successful. How do we prepare them to be successful in society? Regardless of the needs that they're suffering from, we need to provide them the tools, the instruments to be successful. That requires a lot of different things. The relationship and rapport, which we started this podcast around, the accessibility of the school when those students do move on. This is their home beyond graduation. We encourage our students to come back, to call if they need support. We do a follow up with our students to understand where they are. And they always know that we're a phone call away if they need any type of support to help them with any type of troubles they may be faced with. That happens while they're here, and then that happens after the fact. It's, it touches me when we just had a student here, 2 days ago. We have a student at Drexel. He was here back visiting. He's a basketball player also. He's a student athlete at Drexel. He's very successful there academically and athletically, and he's back meeting with our up and coming basketball players. He brought another student with him who's a graduate who was in his class who works at Home Depot, and he's successful at Home Depot, and he's coming back and telling the kids, "There's nothing wrong with working at Home Depot. I'm doing well. I'm in the management program." So I think that's really important that our students see the students who've left come back and talk about their successes. And if there is some failures out there, we use those as learning experiences as well. If the students are aware of something that may hit the media or something about one of our students, what not to do potentially. We're constantly educating our students around, life lessons.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I feel like a piece of that is, finding students, where they are and understanding what's their unique situation may be. I do remember when COVID hit and School Improvement Partnership, which does reporting for all the Equitable Facilities Fund schools and a number of other schools. We were doing a report on how schools had dealt with COVID at that time when some schools
Mhm,
actually were closed around the country, including yours, and and so remote learning became important. And I happen to know in the school district of Philadelphia, they were probably hoping to get iPads out in September of that year to
mhm,
students. And I recall that at executive, not only had you all handed out iPads, but you were going around to make sure the kids had hotspots.
mhm. It's a good point. That actually was picked up by PBS, and that story was up for an award. So PBS sent out a reporter and a crew to ride along with us. And we would take out our vehicles daily, our administration, and make sure our students were accounted for. Students who were struggling academically on Zooms or students who were not present, we were able to account for every student in the school. And that wasn't happening in a lot of other places. A lot of students would disappear at that time. You know, who knows where they would move? They become homeless. Hopefully nothing worse than that. But there was a lot happening, and it was tough to um, hold students accountable, but also have accessibility to them. And we were able to do that, and we were pretty proud about that. And that was a good piece. I love when that pops back up on Facebook as a memory because it was a well done job by the PBS crew that was out watching our teams go to various different homes to redirect behaviors. You know, even a parent would call, "Hey, I'm having trouble with my son. He's refusing to get on a Zoom or he's misbehaving. Can you provide support?" Yep, we'll be there. We'll show up. We bring a book if a student needed a book or if they're having a technology issue with their iPad or their Chromebook, we'd send one out to make sure that they didn't slip too far.
Um, I know, Bob, this last question is going to be a little hard because you're always talking about your team, the students, the coalition. But this is sort of a personal question. So if I need to call your wife after this, I may have to do that with your permission. But the question is this, really, to quote my favorite author, Abraham Verghese, who wrote Cutting for Stone. He says, uh, you live life forward, but understand it backward. What is it that you understand now as a leader that you wished you knew earlier?
That's a really good question. Um, ask my wife also. She and we talk about this often. I spent a lot of time on the road in this field, a lot of time away from home. Maybe if I would have budgeted my time a little better, we wouldn't have had as much stress. We're still together. Actually, today's our anniversary, by the way. But
Oh,
it's uh, great question. There was a lot of stress with me being on the road as much as I had. I had a lot of responsibilities, a lot of schools all over, the Northeast and beyond. Budgeting my time, delegating authority a little more, not trying to do everything, I think is something I learned over the years. Having once you establish that team and the trust is there and the confidence in the team, allowing them to work and support you when you can't be there and teach them how to handle the job responsibility so you didn't have to be there. That piece I think is something I learned over the years. Patience is something else I've learned. I wish I learned a little sooner. Um, that has helped me. I have a lot of energy and passion for this profession, and sometimes too much. I've learned to sit back and take a second of pause and process certain things out a little slower than I used to. I think that was really important to understand and learn over the years. And being candid and direct, I wish I could have been more candid and direct earlier in my career. I think that's very, very positive. You know, instead of appeasing in your redirections or conversation as you're younger, just because you're not experienced, just understanding being candid in conversation and what you want done and need done, but still being um, open and supportive of decisions and communications. That's a
yeah,
good question. Makes you think for sure.
it does make you think. Yeah, I'm writing down all this to help me at home. So all those lessons, whether they're from executive education, they're from your educational career, or from life, it's really helpful. And in those times of stress, that's when it's hardest. When
Yes.
those, for me, Alan, the impatience, the not good communicating, agendaless communication, clear communication, I sometimes struggle with. But my team
Yes.
is helping me, and certainly Cheryl is as well. Um, well, Bob, I really first just wanted to thank you for clearing your morning so that we could learn from you and talk a little bit about your journey so far.
It's been great to be here, and it's always a pleasure to sit in front of you and have conversation with you. I appreciate everything you do for charter schools and who you are as a person, and I thank you for allowing me to be here today and having a talk with you.
Thank you. This is what charter school leadership looks like.